Maharaj here online. I'd like to request Kadam Kana Prabhu to introduce Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisance.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. If I could just spend a minute to introduce Maharaj. Hare Krishna everyone. So thank you for joining us this evening. We're continuing the series of glorification of Srila Prabhupada. And today we have with us His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj. Maharaj is actually originally from New Zealand. And he actually met Srila Prabhupada for the first time in University of Auckland, from what I've read. And but Maharaj formally surrendered at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada in London in the year 1973. And from there, Maharaj has been serving Srila Prabhupada's movement in a variety of ways. He's stationed mainly in South Africa and overseas preaching in Africa. And he's served administrative roles in the GBC as a chairman, co-chairman, and many other services. He's also got disciples all over the world. So thank you, Maharaj, for accepting our invitation and giving us the association today. Jai, His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Maharaj ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai. So over to you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Kadamba Kanana Prabhu. So nice to see you again. Haven't seen you for a while. Yes, well, devotees, I don't know if you can pick up from my accent. I am from New Zealand, but I think my accent has changed. It's sort of evolved, you could say, in different ways due to me living in different places. Yes, well, I'm very happy to be here with you in Auckland. Let me just start by chanting some prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presta Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastya Chadeshatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhupada Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Yes, so again, Hare Krishna everyone, New Zealanders. Very nice to be with you. I don't know if any of you are really like born and raised in New Zealand, or if you've come from, Fiji or wherever, some other part of the world. But I was born in Auckland at the main hospital there, up by the Domain, Grafton, near the museum. And that was 1951, August. And I was educated in Auckland, King's School and King's College. And then I wanted to become a writer. So my father arranged for me to work, first of all, at a newspaper, which I believe doesn't exist now, the Auckland Star. So I worked there for a while. And anyway, then I decided to go to university after a while. I'd been working on and off. And it was what now? The very early 70s, very early 70s. Yeah, that's right. And I was sort of perplexed about life and who I am and what is life and what to do and all that sort of thing. So I decided to go to university and study philosophy. And that didn't last long. I was too lazy, really. But one very important thing did happen, extremely, vitally important, was that one day in April, I think it was April the 14th, I was walking with a friend through the grounds of the Auckland University, just heading towards the cafeteria, when coming from my right, I heard a sound like little tinkling bells, something like that. At least that's what it sounded like, little bells ringing from my right-hand side. So I looked across to my right. There was a friend with me also, a young fellow, actually Canadian, but living in Auckland. At that time, his name was Chris Hughes, and I haven't seen him since then in almost 50 years. But anyway, I looked across, and who should I see? Maybe 15 meters away or something like that was Srila Prabhupada. So Srila Prabhupada was the first devotee I saw. And Prabhupada was walking more or less in my direction, but a little in front of me. And there were two young girls, you know, like early 20s, one on either side of Prabhupada, like maybe a meter away from him on either side, and they were dancing very gracefully. And they had baskets with red rose petals. And as they were dancing, very gracefully and gently and slowly, they were throwing the rose petals just in front of Srila Prabhupada's feet. And Prabhupada was walking, you know, slowly, gently. He wasn't rushing at all, but his head was back like this, looking sort of down at the world. He was wearing very sort of shiny, glossy, and quite dark saffron silk robes, and looking very noble. I didn't know who he was or what was going on, but I just saw this scene, Prabhupada with the two girls dancing so nicely and throwing the rose petals, that the thought just spontaneously entered my mind without even really, you know, trying to calculate and really analyze. The thought just came into my mind, this must be like heaven. It was really a profound experience. Then I looked behind Prabhupada, and there was a group of other devotees, maybe 6 or something, 8, just a small group of young men, and I think a couple of ladies also, but more young men behind Prabhupada. And they had dhotis and kurtas and tilak. And the young men had shaved heads. At the time, I had long hair. And because, you know, all the young men had long hair in those days. if you didn't have long hair, you were just, sort of hopelessly out of date. So I saw these young men, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever, behind Prabhupada playing kartals and mridanga and singing with their shaved heads, sort of like my head. Now I just shaved my head about, 4 or 5 hours ago. So I saw these young men and I thought, oh no, that's not so good. Because they had such super short hair or no hair in some cases. Yeah, so anyway, I think it was April the 14th, it was 12th or 14th. And Prabhupada then walked up. I stopped, me and my friend, we stopped. And we're watching this scene, which is moving towards us, but a little across in front of us. And so Srila Prabhupada walked past us with the devotees and this just mild kirtan going on. And in the quadrangle, I don't know if any of you are studying in Auckland University these days. I went back there maybe 20 years ago just to see if it was still like what it was when that whole happening happened. And it seemed like it was. So there's a quadrangle, there was or is a quadrangle, an open tiled area, fairly large, in front of the cafeteria. And in the middle of that, there was a little stage, just it was maybe like 3 meters by 3 meters or something. And it was maybe only a foot off the ground. It wasn't high at all, just a little raised. And the devotees and Srila Prabhupada got onto the stage. I don't know if all the devotees fitted on, but anyway, Prabhupada was there. And Srila Prabhupada, as I recall, was sitting on when we were looking at the stage, it was sort of on our right-hand side of the stage. And the kirtan stopped. And then Srila Prabhupada started leading kirtan. And, as they had been walking up, like I said, there was kirtan going on, but I was just really absorbed in the visual side of things, Prabhupada and the devotees and what is this? And I didn't hear what they were singing. But when Prabhupada sat down on the stage and Prabhupada started singing, then I heard that Prabhupada was singing Hare Krishna. This is 1972. And at the end, I think right at the end of 69, so, just 2.5 years before, say, something like that, George Harrison from the Beatles helped the devotees to make the Hare Krishna record. I'm sure you've all heard that. And, on that record, George Harrison is playing the harmonium. Next time you listen to it, I'm sure you'll hear it, sooner or later. It's so well known. George Harrison is playing the harmonium. And so Srila Prabhupada started singing. And I had heard the Hare Krishna record back in those days, right, I think at the end of 69. So I was very familiar with the Hare Krishna mantra because that record had been top of the hit parade. And so many of my friends knew it. And one of my friends, his name, I think he's still there in Auckland, although I haven't seen him in close on 50 years. His name is Tony Martin. And he runs or owns a furniture business in Auckland. So he was really into the Hare Krishna mantra and the Hare Krishna record. He loved it. And we would see each other fairly regularly, and he'd always talk about it. So I'd heard it. And I didn't know what it was all about, but I knew George Harrison was into it. And anything that George Harrison was into had to be good. That was how the young people felt in those days. Absolutely, for sure. So I heard Prabhupada sing Hare Krishna, and I recognized it. Oh, this is Hare Krishna. And then I looked at Prabhupada, who was singing, eyes closed and deeply in a meditative mood. And I thought, oh, maybe he's Krishna. Maybe Prabhupada was Krishna. Anyway, I was just 21. No, I was just 20. I was just 20. So I didn't know, just ignorance. But I don't know if you know the history so much in Auckland. Just shortly before, just weeks before, the most popular, actually the two most popular like rock groups for the young New Zealanders, the two of them really got into Krishna consciousness. One of them was from South Island, I think. They were called Ticket, but the one in Auckland was called Space Farm. Space Farm. And I was a big Space Farm fan. I really was. And I would go, they would play every night in a nightclub called the Tabla. And I would go 2 or 3 times a week to hear them. And for the last couple of weeks before seeing Prabhupada, the members of that group, Space Farm, they were a hippie group. They had long hair and just, it was pretty wild. But suddenly they all had shaved heads. And I'm coming to the nightclub and hear these guys with shaved heads, and they're talking about India and mantras and the Ganges, because they had become influenced. They had become influenced by George Harrison, actually. And then I saw Prabhupada, like I've just been describing. So Prabhupada gave a class there. He chanted, he gave a class. That class is recorded. And if you've got if you look on the internet, you can find it. If you've got Prabhupada's books and lectures and letters and so on your computer, you can find it. Prabhupada's class at Auckland University, April, I think 14th, but April, maybe 12th or 14th, something like that. And it's a very nice class. I battled to really follow because of Prabhupada's accent. It was difficult. But Prabhupada was saying to the students that you are the flowers of this country. So actually Prabhupada was saying, don't commit suicide. Take to Krishna consciousness and make your lives successful. You can look it up if you like and see what Prabhupada said. Yeah, so that had a deep effect on me, a really deep effect, deeper than I even realized at the time. And so then, that's April. I went in August, just after turning 21. I went to Australia. I met a devotee there. Then I went to England, arrived in England sort of mid-December, maybe, sometime in December 72, and started visiting the temple and moved in to the temple on January the 7th, 1973. So that's my story, coming to Krishna consciousness. And let me tell you a few stories about Srila Prabhupada. Let me tell you a few stories that I think you may not have heard. Yeah, I collect Prabhupada stories. Like I say, I joined there in London, January the 7th, 73. There was a temple there just about half a kilometer or something from the main street of London, which is called Oxford Street. So let's see, where shall I begin? Where shall I begin? Well, I was there in the Berry Place, Central London Temple, and just a few weeks or a few months later, it may have been April, it might have been May, it was around that time, George Harrison, again, of the Beatles. The Beatles had broken up in 69, but they were still just fantastically popular, just absolutely, totally popular. So George donated Bhaktivedanta Manor, big country estate, very beautiful place, really nice place, just outside London, just right outside on the northwestern side. So, and then Prabhupada came and spent some weeks just shortly after we got Bhaktivedanta Manor, and he was there for Janmashtami 73 and installed Radha Gokulananda, and the next day was his Vyasa Puja. I was there for the Vyasa Puja. And then, because I was based in the Central London Temple, which was a very busy temple with at least 50 devotees full-time and a lot happening. So I wasn't there all the time when Prabhupada was there those few weeks, but we would come out every few days for the classes. So, one thing, and there actually, then I moved out to the manor in later, like maybe November of 73. And Prabhupada, Prabhupada would come and go through London often. Every year he would pass through London at least 6 times, from India to America, from America to India, like that. So here's an interesting story. Listen to this. I suspect you may not have heard this story. So there we were. Now I was living in Bhaktivedanta Manor. there we were. And we noticed a very interesting, I don't know, sort of unpleasant thing, that in Bhaktivedanta Manor, there were so many mice. It was infested, completely infested with mice. You wouldn't believe it. You know, it's a big building with many rooms. And any time, if you walked into a room where there was nobody, if you walked into a room, there'd be mice in the room running around here and there. And I remember I would offer Mangalarti to Radha Gokulananda fairly regularly in those days, just after I got second initiation. And you know, I'm offering arati, offering the different items, and devotees, there would be mice running on the altar. And they would dance in the kirtan. Well, maybe not exactly, but they were there on the altar during Mangalarti, and we would chase them off and continue offering, you know, the different things. But then they'd come back. Oh, Krishna. It was a nightmare, actually. So many mice. So many mice. No rats. Not a single rat. Because I think the mice, there are so many mice, I think they ganged up and killed all the rats. So anyway, we didn't know what to do. Mukunda, you know Mukunda Maharaj, he's in mainly in Australia now, but sometimes in New Zealand. He was the temple president. He wasn't a sannyasi yet. And I was the treasurer of Bhaktivedanta Manor. So we didn't know what to do about these mice. So we asked Prabhupada, what should we do about the mice? And Srila Prabhupada told us that the mice are not there for the association. Prabhupada said the mice are there for food. So if you keep the place clean, so there's nothing for them to eat, they'll go, because that's what they're there for. They're just there for food. So we formed a team of, I think it was like 4 devotees, and all they did was clean. All day. They clean everything. And once they cleaned the whole building, they'd go and clean it again. And when they finished the second time, they'd clean it again. So that Bhaktivedanta Manor was spotless, completely, totally. You just could not have got it any cleaner. But, you know, the mice did not go away. The mice were still there, dancing on the altar during Mangalarti. And we thought, you know, we didn't know what to think. And we thought, well, maybe they are here for the association. Maybe they were devotees in their previous lives. But anyway, seriously, we really didn't know what to do. So you know what we did? One devotee got a really bright idea. You know what we did? We got a cat. And you know what we named the cat? It was a female. You know what we named the cat? We named the cat Nrisingha Devi. Nrisingha Devi. And after about a week, Nrisingha Devi had put on a lot of weight because she was killing so many mice. It was just like World War III. Amazing. Dead bodies and parts of Anyway, I won't get into that, but that was interesting. And another, before that, very interesting thing. A group of us had come out from central London for the class, morning class. Prabhupada was actually giving class on Bhagavad Gita in the morning. I don't know if you're familiar with Bhaktivedanta Manna. Anyway, I won't get into that. But Prabhupada was giving class every morning, Bhagavad Gita. So at the end, one morning, the temple president from Edinburgh was there, Scotland. And the temple president from Edinburgh told Srila Prabhupada, said, Srila Prabhupada, in Edinburgh, we have a temple, which is in a very old building. It's more than 300 years old. And the president told Prabhupada that it's so old and there are many rats there. Many rats. And he told Prabhupada, and rats can be dangerous. They spread disease, they may bite children. And so he asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, is it all right if we kill the rats? And Prabhupada looked at him. And Srila Prabhupada said, if you kill the rats, you should be killed. And this devotee, the temple president from Edinburgh, he just, he didn't get it. I mean, we didn't expect such an answer, so we're all taken aback. And he didn't get it. So he repeated the question. And he tried to explain a little bit, that how rats are undesirable. And then he stopped. And Prabhupada again looked at him, and Prabhupada said, if you kill the rats, you should be killed. And that was the end of the story. And that's why we didn't want to kill the mice. I mean, we could have ourselves, trapped them or whatever, poisoned them. But we didn't want to do that because of what Prabhupada had said. So, yeah. I was there from the late 73 through 74. I was living in the manor. In 75, I went out on traveling Sankirtan for a couple of years. About a year and a half. But through 74, I was staying in Bhaktivedanta Manor, and Prabhupada would come, like I said. He would come every few months. It was a really good place to be in that sense, to be in Bhaktivedanta Manor, because he'd always come and stay in the manor. So one time, Srila Prabhupada came, and so Prabhupada came. One time Prabhupada came, and it was the first time that he came. We came from our central London temple, and we all came to greet Prabhupada at the manor, Bhaktivedanta Manor. So it was 73, sort of May or something like that, June maybe June. And Prabhupada came from Heathrow, the main airport, the only airport at the time in London. He came to the manor by helicopter. So the helicopter landed, and all the devotees lined up in two lines from the helicopter around the manor and into the manor, big building, and around inside to the bottom of the stairs inside Bhaktivedanta Manor. And I was one of the new boys. I'd been a devotee for 6 months or something like that, 5 months maybe. So I was at the end of the line, inside Bhaktivedanta Manor, by the bottom of the stairs, near the bottom of the stairs, which go up, to the upper part, but up to Prabhupada's rooms. Right, so there we were, and Prabhupada, because there are 2 lines of devotees, Prabhupada came in between, walking in between the 2 lines, and then inside, and then he came almost right in front of me, right in front of the devotee before me, actually, and Prabhupada stopped. And there was Brahmananda. Maybe some of you would have known him. He passed away a few years ago, big, heavily built devotee, but a very nice devotee. Brahmananda, he was a sannyasi. And there were a couple of other devotees there, and they were talking about something. And we, the new boys, we all bowed down on our hands and knees, and we bowed down. But Prabhupada stopped there. So we didn't know what to do. Prabhupada was there for maybe a minute, and we are down offering obeisances. Now what to do? Should we get up and do something, or should we stay down? So we decided to stay down. So now we're still down, and we've been down now for about half a minute, waiting. So the devotee just before me, who is Prabhupada's right in front of him, that devotee put out his hand very slowly, his right hand. He put his hand out, and I'm down and I'm watching, I've got my head on one side, I'm watching as he puts his hand out, and he put his hand out, and he had to stretch a bit, but he touched Prabhupada's lotus feet and went like that, and I'm watching. And then that devotee, he turned to me, because I'm on his left side. And Prabhupada's in front of him, I'm on the devotee's immediate left side. And this devotee, he pointed like that. And he very quietly said, go on. Okay, so now I decided, right, I'm going to try and touch Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. The only problem was that Prabhupada was just a little further away from me, because he's in front of the devotee next to me, so a little further. So I put my hand out, and I put my hand out, and I put my hand out, and then further. And, it's a bit of a way, so I'm trying to stretch a little, and Brahmananda, Swami, sannyasi with his big sannyas danda, he saw my hand coming out. So with his danda, he went bang on my hand to discourage me. So I pulled my hand back. But now this devotee next to me, he looked back at me again, and he went, go on, very quietly, but, really like, go on. So again, out came my hand, and out, and out. And, it's a stretch. It was quite a stretch, actually. But, I managed to touch Srila Prabhupada's lotus foot. And I got some of the dust from Prabhupada's lotus feet. And I think that's probably why I'm still here. I'm still here in Prabhupada's movement, because I got some of the dust from his lotus feet. So, yeah, let me tell you something else, which, I mean, something concerning me with Prabhupada. The time came for me to get second initiation. This was 74. And Prabhupada actually called for all the devotees who are going to get initiation on, like the next day or in a couple of days. Prabhupada called for all the devotees who are getting initiation. He wanted to meet with them. So we all gathered there, not a huge number, maybe 10. We all gathered there and in Prabhupada's rooms, his main darshan room in Bhaktivedanta Manor. And Prabhupada came out, we offered obeisances, and Prabhupada was standing up. So we stood up. And Srila Prabhupada said, "So, are you all chanting 16 rounds?" And most of us said, "Yes, Prabhupada, yes, chanting 16 rounds." But there were two young girls, young, like teenage. They might have been 17 or 18, something like that. And these two young girls, they were sort of friends, pals. They giggled and they said, "No, Srila Prabhupada." They were not chanting 16 rounds. And you know what Prabhupada did? Prabhupada canceled the whole initiation, the whole thing for everyone. And I tell you what, those girls were not very popular. Anyway, about 2 weeks later, one or 2 weeks, I don't know, maybe 10 days later, the initiation happened. So, it all worked out in the end. But, it really shows how Prabhupada was really concerned about chanting 16 rounds. It's not a small thing, not a small thing at all. At least if you're initiated or you want to be initiated. So anyway, then, a couple of weeks after that incident, the initiation happened. And what happened was the fire yajna took place one day, one morning, and the next morning, those who are getting second initiation had to go up to Srila Prabhupada's darshan room upstairs in Bhaktivedanta Manor to receive the Gayatri mantras. And I was the first one to be called in. So it was just me and Srila Prabhupada in his main darshan room in Bhaktivedanta Manor. So I went over. Prabhupada's seat there is at the back, just under one of the windows on the right-hand side, when for us as we're coming in, on the right-hand side at the back by the window. And I came and offered my obeisances, and now I'm kneeling. I'm kneeling in front of Srila Prabhupada. And Srila Prabhupada noticed that I already had my Brahmin thread on, because the devotee, Prabhupada was not, anyway, no. The devotee who performed the ceremony, Rabatanandan Swami, he had put the threads on the devotees who were, the men at least, who are receiving second initiation. So I already had my Brahmin thread on from the previous day when I went up that morning to meet Prabhupada and receive the Gayatri mantras. Right, so there I am, and I've just got a dhoti on and a chadar, like a Harinam chadar, and that's all. And Prabhupada saw that I had my Brahmin thread on already. And this was the first time I had been like really face to face with Prabhupada, and just like 2 meters or 1.5 meters away from him. So, it's quite a sort of sobering situation to be in. So Prabhupada saw the Brahmin thread, and Srila Prabhupada asked in a sort of really quite strong way. Prabhupada said, "Why have you got your Brahmin thread on?" And I didn't know what to say. Why? I didn't know why. It was there. And so I became speechless. And then Prabhupada, after a few seconds, Prabhupada said, "Who put your thread on?" And I said, "Rabhatanandan Swami." And Prabhupada said, "Why did he put it on?" I wanted to put it on. Wow. Why did he put it on? Gosh, I didn't know. So, it's very Prabhupada's presence was so sort of impactful in her view. With Prabhupada, you're just really on your toes. So I was kind of half stunned. So why did he put it on? I wanted to put it on, and I just couldn't say anything. Then Srila Prabhupada called for the president, who, as I said, was Mukunda Prabhu at that point. So in came Mukunda after a minute or so. And, that's Bhaktivedanta Manor, it's a big place. And whenever Prabhupada would come, whenever basically, many devotees would gather, including devotees from Europe, from France, from Germany, from Holland. These countries, there are a lot of devotees there in those days. And they would gather. So there were in Bhaktivedanta Manor at the time altogether, including those from overseas and devotees from different parts of the UK, there were probably, there was a good few hundred, like maybe at least three, maybe 400, plenty of devotees. And Mukunda Prabhu, as the temple president, he was busy, really busy, keeping the whole place going with this huge number of devotees plus Prabhupada. So Prabhupada called in Mukunda Prabhu, and Mukunda came in, and Prabhupada said, "Why has this boy got his Brahmin thread on?" And Mukunda was also, couldn't say anything. And Prabhupada said, "You should know. Why do you not know?" Prabhupada said, "You are the temple president. You must know all these things. Why has this boy got his Brahmin thread on? I wanted to put his Brahmin thread on." But Mukunda was speechless. And so anyway, then Mukunda went back out again, having been chastised by Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada gave me the Gayatri mantras, 7 mantras. He gave me the sheet with the mantras printed on it. And he quickly recited them, really quickly. And I'd never seen those mantras. Maybe the first one I'd seen a little bit, but even that, I didn't know what the mantras were at all. So Prabhupada just spoke them just like that. And then he said, "Now you repeat them." Whoa, these new mantras. I was not a Sanskrit expert. I'm not now either. But I managed to say the mantras without messing it up by the grace of the Lord. And then Prabhupada showed me how to count. You count on your fingers. You got to chant each mantra 10 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But Prabhupada did it really fast. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now you do it. And I had to count on my fingers, not knowing anything. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know you had to do this. But I got it right. Somehow by the grace of the Lord. And then out I went. Yeah, that was quite an experience. So, yeah, well, I got loads of stories. I could tell you loads of stories. But when Prabhupada would come, there was a group of us. When Prabhupada just arrived, we would sit outside his room. His main room, his darshan room. We'd sit outside and wait for the Maha Prasad. And the thing we would wait, one of the things we'd really wait for were the orange skins. Prabhupada would be given orange. He liked to take orange, which like a whole orange has just been cut into, say, 8 pieces, something like that. And the skin is still on completely. And he'd suck the juice and then just, put the peel back on the plate. So we'd wait for the orange skins and we'd get them and we just eat the orange skins. That was the special mercy. One time, I'll tell you another 1 or 2 little stories. When I was not personally present right on the spot, Prabhupada was being driven to a program in London. And so they're driving along and they drove past Buckingham Palace, where the royal family, their main residence. So they drove past Buckingham Palace. They're approaching. There's one road comes straight up in the front, and then you turn to the left and go around Buckingham Palace. So they're coming up, and there's Buckingham Palace in front. And one devotee, his name was Tribhuvanath. Such a nice devotee, amazing devotee. Unfortunately, he also passed away maybe 10 years ago. So Tribhuvanath was there with Prabhupada in the car, and they're approaching Buckingham Palace. And Tribhuvanath told Srila Prabhupada that, Prabhupada, one of the guards here, the Queen's guards, the ones with the big hats, the big black hats that they wear, he just became a devotee. He's a very important person, one of the Queen's personal guards. He became a devotee. It's a big thing. And Prabhupada, very cool, really cool. Prabhupada looked at Tribhuvanath and said, "And what about the Queen?" Well, the Queen has met devotees, actually a number of times. She was in front of the deities during an entire arati ceremony once in one of the devotee schools anyway. Yeah, so, and what about the Queen? Okay, let me just tell you one more little story. We're in Berry Place in the central London temple. And the Vyasa there was right next to the altar. Not a big temple room. I don't know, maybe 50 square meters or maybe slightly less even. And kind of narrow, So the altar took up the whole width of the temple room, and Prabhupada's Vyasa was, when you're looking at the altar on the right-hand side and right against the wall, on a bit of an angle, sort of pointing out towards into the temple room, but right by the deities, like Prabhupada could practically put his hand out and touch the deities almost. So there was Srila Prabhupada sitting there. Prabhupada, during the class, Prabhupada stopped and he turned around and looked at the deities. And this is the central London temple. So the deities are Radha, London, Ishwara. Out at Bhaktivedanta Manor, Radha Gokulananda, but in the center of London, Radha, London, Ishwara. And Prabhupada looked at the deities for some seconds, maybe like 10 seconds. And then we could see Prabhupada became emotional. And he turned around to the devotees. And Prabhupada said, I have captured Krishna, and I'm holding him here for you. Now, you please come and take him. A deep moment, very deep. But Prabhupada was really deep, amazing. So there you go, devotees. There's some Prabhupada Katha for you. I have to go because I have another program in 2 minutes in Russia. Yeah, a program with some Russian devotees. But thanks for having me. Thank you, Kadamba Kanana Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, Maharaj, for sharing this nectar. You brought us back to Bhaktivedanta Manor and to London. We'd like to invite Maharaj again later on, and maybe you can give us your association again. Thank you very much, Maharaj, for taking time off. We might not have time for questions, though, because of Maharaj's class.
There's no time.
Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Maharaj.
Okay. Hare Krishna devotees. See you later.
Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj.
Thank you very much.
I think many of you are Gujaratis. If you are, Pacha Aujo.
Aujo.
Aujo. Pacha
Aujo.
Спасибо, дорогой Шрила Гурудев. Спасибо.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. Radhe, who's going to sing the Singapore?
Hare Krishna, thank you very much, everyone. So today, Ishita Mataji and Gaurav Prabhu will sing Nursing Prayer.
Okay.
So
Thank you.
You can turn on your camera and video and unmute yourself, and you can sing.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare.
Yes, Mataji, thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Namaste Narasimhaya. Namaste Narasimhaya. Prahlada Daine. Prahlada Daine. Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha. Hiranyakashi Purvakshaha. Shilatankana Kalae. Shilatankana Kalae. Ito Narsinga Parato Narsinga. Ito Narsinga Parato Narsinga. Yato yato yami tato narsinga. Yato yato yami tato narsinga. Bahe narsinga hirdaye narsinga. Bahe narsinga hirdaye narsinga. Narsingamadhim sharanam prapade. Narsingamadhim sharanam prapade. Tav kar kamalvare nakam adbhuta shringam. Dalita hiranyakashipu tanu bringam. Keshavadrita narhari rupa. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jayo Jagadish Hare. Keshavadrita Narhari Rupa. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jai Jagadish Hare. Jayo Jagadish Hare. Jayo Narsinga Dev, Jayo Narsinga Dev, Jayo Narsinga Dev, Jayo Narsinga Dev, Jayo Prahlad Maharaj, Jayo Prahlad Maharaj, Jayo Prahlad Maharaj, Jayo Prahlad Maharaj, Jayo Jayo Prabhupada, 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 Jayo Jayo Prabhupada. Nittai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittai Gaur Hari Bol. Vighan Vinashak Narsingh Dev Bhagwan